Thank you. And I think it's good timing just to recognize we have a scout in the audience. So welcome. Glad to have you here. I'm sorry the rest of your troop had to go to the Ferdinand Town Council, but we're glad to have you here. Also, at this time, I'd like to allow for just a moment of personal reflection. It's something we've added to our agenda at the start of our meetings this year. So everyone in their own way for the next minute or so. Thank you. So the first thing on the agenda tonight is to approve the minutes for January 15th, the regular Common Council meeting. They were sent out. Is there any corrections or additions to the minutes?
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as they were presented.
I have a motion from Nancy to approve.
I'll go ahead and second it.
I have a second from Paul. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Minutes are approved. Pass these down, please. All right, the first thing on the agenda is ordinance number 2020-3, and this is to appropriate money from a general fund to the fire department and from edit fund to the contractual fund.
Mayor, are you going to have Bud do the utility service board report?
He's not on the agenda.
It's not my personal reflection.
Yeah, we didn't have him on the agenda tonight. So, Bud, is there a report from the utility service board you'd like to make? Go ahead. You're prepared, so let's do it.
I won't even hear it. Starts.
No.
Does, yeah.
He was there.
And actually, we didn't have Bud on the agenda, and there has been some discussion as to why Bud is the only department leader that we have come up here and report out. At times, we'll see Kyle Rupert report on the progress at the arts, at the cultural center. Bud and his responsibility, and in the past with the power plant project, it was very public. There was a lot of issues and items to share. Not so sure that because we have a utility service board and the minutes that go to this organization, don't know that it's a requirement that Bud comes every meeting to present, but he's always full of information, and I'm more than willing to listen.
Getting kicked off.
That's why you weren't on the agenda, Bud. Yes,
Okay.
if I hadn't gotten back to you.
All right.
Sorry, Bud.
Okay. The Utility Service Board did meet last night at 7 o'clock, February 18th. And some of the things we discussed, Mike Harder is now on the board. He missed the January meeting, so the February meeting was his first one. He was welcome aboard. He's going to be the new water commissioner. We opened some bids for a generator for the electric department for their facilities. And the low bid was Evapar out of Evansville, Indiana for $22,575. And that was approved pending review of the specifications. The electric department also had another bid opening for a compression tool and cutting tool. The low bid was from a Power Line Supply for $6,912.80. That was for a Husky brand cutting, crimping tool. Midwestern Engineers had sent a request for an increase in their fees associated with the inspection of the South Water Tank Rehab Project for the Water Department. Due to the length of time that the contractor took, that required them to be on site more often. So their fee pretty much doubled, increased by $19,500. That should be offset by the additional costs of liquidated damages that we had built into the contract. Since the contractor went over, they will forfeit some of their fee, and that hopefully that should go to cover the extra for Midwestern Engineers. So that was approved by the board. Wastewater had some equipment that was declared surplus. It amounted to, like Ed said, it's probably less than a couple $100, just odds and end things that a lot of it's are going to the auction. So coming up this spring, so that was approved to declare those items surplus. We talked about the Beaver Lake winter level valve. Originally, we had it December 1st, would open it on December 1st and close it on March 1st. We decided to expand the time frame to help people work on their docks, give them more time, and also give us more of a buffer of when spring rains come to kind of protect the farmers' flow downstream. That was approved by the board to go ahead and make those changes. I gave an update on the AMI, the Advanced Metering Infrastructure. We're in the process of putting together the RFP, and so we're going through that process. We got a draft done, but it needs to go through legal and get some more reviews on that. We're doing an update on the gas cost of service study, which is also a gas revenue study. We did meet with Kerry Hyde last week, and he's our consultant on that project, and he has it pretty much completed. There still are some scenarios he wants to work out with the adjustments. So when he gets those done, hopefully in a week or two, then we'll have a gas committee meeting and review all of that at once. That hasn't been scheduled yet, but he's should tell me something this week. I gave an update on the power plant. We did receive a report that we're in the process of reviewing on just documentation on where some of the debris went to what landfills and all that stuff. All that's required by IDEM to have those records. And plus, there's sinkholes and things on the site that need to be filled in and leveled out as soon as the weather starts turning a little bit more. So we're going to withhold his escrow money until all that's complete. We have a resolution that we approved for the revising the non-recurring charges. That's going to be coming up. Part of it, that resolution has to be approved by the council. The other half can be changed and approved by the Utility Service Board. So that's coming up in this meeting tonight to have you guys approve that. But that was approved by the Utility Service Board. Part of that included the electric department. You can have a security light put on your property, and they will install it on a pole and charge you so much a month for that service. There's no upfront charge, but in some places there is no pole and they want a security light. So if they want a security light, then we will charge them material and labor to add the pole and the wire to get them a security light where they want. And then we'll just charge them the monthly charge for just the light itself. I think that's all we had. We had a pretty short meeting. But I have last month's. So I wasn't here in January. I could do that one too. You already have a copy of that one. So if you have any questions on any of them, let me know.
Well, and I think given the timing of the meeting just being last night, there wasn't time for the council to absorb the minutes or anything, so it is appropriate that you did give the update today.
Okay.
Thanks for being prepared.
All right.
Thanks, Bud. With that, I'll return to ordinance number 2020-3, and that's to appropriate money from the general fund to the fire department and from the edit fund to the contractual fund. This ordinance is available for one reading only procedure. Could I have a motion to consider the ordinance for one reading only?
Go ahead and make that motion for one reading only, please.
I have a motion from Paul,
I'll second.
a second from Dave. Any discussion on this? If not, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Mayor, I think
Did you open the public hearing?
I'm going to do it at discussion. No. So I have a motion to move forward on this, but before we do so, I'd like to open it up for discussion. And so at this point in time, I'd like to open it to a public hearing. Is there any comments, concerns from the public regarding this appropriation? And if not, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So move.
I have a motion from Nancy and a second from Phil. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, public hearing is closed. It will. Now, this ordinance is also, I need a motion to read it in full or by title only.
Go ahead and make a motion to read by title only.
I have a motion from Paul to read by title only.
I'll second.
Second by Kevin. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Would the city attorney please read ordinance number 2020-3 by title only?
Number 2020-3, an ordinance appropriating additional money for the city of Jasper, Indiana for the remainder of the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2020.
Okay, could I ask for a motion to pass and adopt ordinance number 2020-3?
I so move.
And that was Chad?
Second.
A second from Nancy. Any further discussion?
Just kind of an explanation of what the funds were moving back and forth about.
Yeah, I do know that there's $300,000 that's going to be used to help pay for the Mid-States Corridor study. We owe $1 million. We've already appropriated $700,000 toward that. This $300,000 is to go toward our initial payment.
Yeah.
And the other $50,000 is equipment.
I'm sorry.
Goes to the police.
Body cams? Is, it's actually, they're moving it back
Back into the, yeah.
because before, the body cams were going to be paid for over 5 years, and now we're going to pay them all at once.
One time.
So we had to take the money out of one fund and put it into the other fund. All right?
So this $50,000 will go back.
Yeah, yeah. And the $220,000 for the fire department,
And that's for the tanks,
that's for the air tank.
replacement air tanks.
Yeah,
And they breathing out of breath.
every single one of them
It was budgeted in 2019,
are in have the same tank.
have a contract in 2019, so we had to appropriate it this year. We couldn't encumber it. So, all right.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, we have a motion from, and a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
You'll all need to sign that one.
Okay, the next thing is ordinance number 2020-4. And this is a ordinance revising the non-recurring charges. This was a discussion again last night at the utility department. A lot of work went into this. I think John was making mention of that a little bit ago. This is available for one reading only procedure.
Go ahead and make a motion for a one reading only on this, please.
I have a motion from Paul for one reading only.
Second.
I have a second from Kevin. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Could I have a motion to have the ordinance read in full or by title only?
I'll make a motion to read this ordinance by title only.
I have a motion from Nancy for title only.
I'll second.
And a second from Phil. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Would the city attorney please read ordinance number 2020-4 by title only?
Ordinance number 2020-4, an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of Jasper, Indiana, establishing rules, regulations, conditions, and non-recurring charges applying to utility service, amending ordinance 2009-9, and repealing ordinance 2010-5.
Would I have a motion to pass and adopt ordinance number 2020-4? I have a motion from John.
I'll second.
I have a second from Paul over here. Dave just did. Any further discussion on this? If not, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, 2020-4 has passed. Ordinance number 2020-5. This is an ordinance revising the language for security light service, and it's available for one reading only procedure. Could I have a motion to consider ordinance 2020-5 for one reading only?
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion from Dave.
I'll second.
I have a second from Kevin. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Could I have a motion to have the ordinance read in full or by title only?
Make a motion to read by title only.
I have a motion from Paul to read by title only.
I'll second.
I have a second from Dave. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Would the city attorney please read ordinance number 2020-5 by title only?
Ordinance number 2020-5, an ordinance adopting rules, regulations, and conditions applying to electric service, amending ordinance number 1998-8.
And that was what Bud had referred to in his report a little bit earlier, where when we're providing this service, we actually get paid for the materials and the installation of the poles. So,
And I think Jerry also mentioned that it probably only pertains to about 1% of the,
time, yeah.
and if they do it, they pay for the materials. It stays with the property, I believe, too.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other discussion on it? Okay, could I have a motion to pass and adopt 2020-5?
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion from Nancy,
I'll second.
and I have a second from Phil. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. 2020-6. It's an animal noise ordinance, and it's available for one reading only procedure. Could I have a motion to consider the ordinance for one reading only?
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion from Dave,
Second.
second from Nancy. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Could I have the motion to have the ordinance read in full or by title only?
I'll recommend.
I have a motion from John to read by title only.
I'll second it.
I have a second from Dave. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Would the city attorney please read ordinance 2020-6 by title only?
Ordinance number 2020-6, an ordinance regulating animals in the city of Jasper and providing penalties for violation of such regulations, amending ordinance number 2018-4.
Okay. It is my intention, at this time, before I ask for a motion to approve the ordinance, it is my intention to open it up for comment after we get the motion on the table during the discussion. Okay. Could I ask for a motion to pass and adopt ordinance number 2020-6?
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion from Dave.
I'll second.
I have a second from John. Okay, at this time, is there any further discussion? Renee, would you like to cover the,
Well, right, I do want to point out that while animal noises has been the by far most attention, it does cover a couple other things, nothing that's terribly significant, but if you look, Section 1 deals with, actually, we added language so that at the bottom, where it talks about number of animals, that doesn't limit the ability to operate a kennel. So while there are only 4 animals allowed per property, that is not imposing or intending to impose a restriction on businesses that operate as a kennel. Section 2, which we'll come back to, deals with noises, and then Section 3 is enforcement, and it just sets out those departments that are involved in the enforcement of the animal ordinance. So that's the total of the substantive information in the ordinance. Section 2, as I said, deals with animal noises, and as you know, we've been discussing this issue for quite a while. It was discussed pretty significantly as we went through the UDO revision process and in identifying where kennels can be operated and what constitutes a small, medium, and large kennel. While that doesn't sound necessarily on point with noises, it's obviously related. So the subject of animal noises did get brought up and discussed through that process. We've had a couple of council members, I think since January, meet with myself, the mayor, code enforcement officer, and the chief of police, and discuss what they believe it to be the best resolution to the issues that we see occurring on a regular basis. So through that process and research into what some other communities do and what are guidelines for developing a noise ordinance in a municipality. The language that you see was the recommendation that came out of those discussions.
So what was changed?
The previous language said, now I'm paraphrasing because I don't have it in front of me, and in fact, I'll just pull it up real quick.
Is it 2018-4?
I'm sorry?
Or 2019-42?
I don't know the numbers off. I was just going to pull up the code.
That's the one we tabled, and now it's.
Yeah.
The one that was tabled.
Let me get it up in front of me.
but I think that's what you're asking is what changed from that,
What changes from?
from 2019-42.
I misunderstood you.
Am I right?
Previously, it had, I think it had times in it and duration that was taken out.
It seemed like 30 minutes or something like that was in it.
At the recommendation from the staff, the police and the code enforcement, those provisions were removed. I can't,
So if
There was also a requirement in there.
written,
written, that was removed. It doesn't have to be in writing.
Okay.
It also listed certain times that it had to be quiet, like from 10 to 7, I think, in the morning.
Right, it was,
10 PM to 7 AM.
10 to p.m., 7 a.m., and
That was removed.
yeah, the written complaint, so that's kind of what changed. And from my standpoint, I will say the same thing Renee did, that, we looked at other cities and towns around the area and the different kennel properties that they had, and there was just a mixture of everything, and none of them really seemed to fit what we were wanting to do. But there were some that had the same thing, that they just had a kennel. What was allowable for a kennel basically was that, as long as it was permitted and allowed, then that was okay to have in there, so.
Renee, can I ask you, you explained it to me this afternoon. I guess I'm a little dense. I need a second explanation there. But can you hit upon that? One of the questions I brought up was that if they got an exemption to run a large boarding in a industrial area, you said the noise ordinance, because I was curious, my question to you was that, so 24/7 the dogs could make as much noise as they wanted to, and you explained that it was covered under another ordinance?
so we currently have an animal ordinance that has a noise section in it. We also have a nuisance ordinance that has a noise section in it. So that nuisance is what we were in fact imposing, or what we were looking at initially with respect to the downtown dog complaints. So that would continue to apply. It says that it prohibits unnecessary noises. I don't know, Chief Schmidt is in the audience. We've had noise complaints in the past, not necessarily dog noise complaints, but noise complaints. And so the same method that the police use to enforce that nuisance noise ordinance would be used, we would enforce that with respect to the kennels.
So just because you have an exemption doesn't allow you to have the dogs barking 24/7 or at any time?
Just because you're exempt from the animal noise ordinance does not mean you're exempt from the noise nuisance ordinance.
Okay.
And
Is there any value to having that exception in the animal ordinance?
I think so. I mean, I'll just give an example, and if I'm going to keep looking at Chief because he may know the details or remember the details better than I, but say, for example, we had a complaint because a property owner was allowing kids to use their property for four-wheeler riding. They had a large lot it was just an empty lot, and it had a trail on it in the city limits. And so the neighbors, or a neighbor, started complaining about, well, we don't have anything that specifically says you can't do that. But the police were called, and we worked with the property owner to impose time restrictions. We did not prohibit the use of those four-wheelers on that property, but we imposed time restrictions. Those time restrictions aren't seen in the ordinance, but we deemed it unnecessary for them to ride their four-wheelers at 10 o'clock.
And Renee, anyone that wants to open a dog kennel or something like this has to come to the Board of Zoning Appeals, because we don't have anything zoned that covers, kennels. So
We don't have anything zoned that covers large kennels.
Small, medium, or
Small, medium, we do.
Can come in and operate in an industrial zone.
Okay.
Actually, there's a couple different zones, some agricultural.
how did you do small, medium, and large? How did you
By
define?
numbers of animal that come through. So 5 to 25, I
Yeah,
think was small.
And 25,
26 to 40 was a medium, and above 40, they have to come in for a special exception, no matter where they are.
Okay.
We want to know what's happening with that, and we worked on that from starting in September through the end of the year last year.
Made in December.
That was
Right.
made in December, yeah. We had 3 or 4 months of discussion to narrow those definitions down. Sorry, from the planning commission, that was my,
Good input.
we came to, so.
Okay.
Before that, we had no definition of
Right.
small, medium, or large.
That's-
Kennel
I
was,
didn't-
kennel was a kennel, so if you
Yeah, I
had
didn't
8
remember
dogs, if you
seeing
had
any
40
of that.
dogs, it was, yeah.
In this ordinance that we're looking at, under section 1, number 2, number of animals, when it refers to chapter 16-04 districts, what does that district mean? What does that language mean?
the districts chapter in the UDO is the chapter that identifies each different kind of zone.
Okay.
And what's allowed as a permitted use and what's allowed as a special exception.
And also multifamily housing units, it says no more than 2 animals may be maintained per the unit. What if it's a rental unit and they have no pets allowed? I mean,
I think it covers that in here, that it doesn't exempt. If your rent contract says no animals, you have to honor the rent contract.
Right.
right, okay, that's good.
They allow animals, you can't have more than 2.
Okay, gotcha.
In a multi.
Yeah.
Paul, was there any language in there as far as quantitative distances? As an example, if you're in a commercial industrial district and you are applying for an exemption, how far away you are from a residence?
So, again, on the planning side of thing and on the Board of Zoning Appeals, we've had a lot of different people come through and ask those things. In each district, we have certain side yard, rear yard, and front yard setbacks that we have in there. In an industrial district, we were talking today, it's 100 feet on the side to not impose upon your neighbor in there. So I think,
Call it the buffer.
yes.
Is that somewhat standard then, you feel, or?
I think it's going back 4 years into the UDO work, and then we had employed a gentleman named John Molitor who helped kind of give us some guidance from the state level. Was an attorney out of Indianapolis that was consulting with us on,
And the planning,
was in the planning.
people that we hired through that process, that was their recommendation.
So we have the 100-foot buffer and industrial zone
Industrial to residential. I
to a
believe.
residential.
Yes.
Specific to kennels, we currently allow them in agriculture generals districts, rural residential,
And industrial.
business.
And B1 and industrial. Both I1 and I2.
So a kennel a small or medium-sized kennel can open up in any of those districts.
Well, so according to the newest ordinance that we passed in December, in Ag A1, special exception uses include small, medium, and large. So in Ag, for any kind of a kennel, you have to come and get a special exception. Rural residential allows, as a special exception, small or medium, no large at all. R1, as a special exception, allows small and medium, no large. R2, small and medium are allowed as a special exception, no large. R3, small and medium allowed as a special exception, again, no large. R4, small and medium are allowed as a special exception, no large. Neighborhood businesses, B1, small is allowed as a special exception use, no medium or large. General business, B3, small and medium are allowed as permitted uses, no large. Under I1, small and medium are allowed as a permitted use. A large kennel is allowed as a special exception. And I2, small or medium or large, small and medium are allowed as permitted uses. Again, a large is a special exception use. Where there is a special exception, they must have a public hearing and come in front of the Board of Zoning Appeals.
And those are the steps that the Valmers have recently taken for wanting to move to Kathy Lane.
That's true. They got a special exception to operate a large kennel.
In an I-1 or I-1, okay.
And for clarity, if someone refers to a variance, is that the same thing as special exception? Or what is the difference?
Not completely.
Okay.
Yeah, a variance would be if they wanted to operate a business that isn't even listed as a permitted use or a special exception, they would have to get a variance. Special exception, it's very similar process, very similar, but the idea is that for a special exception, it's a contemplated use in that zone. A variance, it's not. Mostly you see variances for, not as much for uses, but for standards. So you wanna
Setbacks, height.
Setbacks, height, those kinds of things.
Okay. Other questions?
I have one more question. So it's conceivable if we pass this, upon passage, then it is possible that a business that is currently not compliant with the ordinance could, upon passage, become compliant by the nature of passage.
Well,
As it pertains to noise, for example.
I guess I'm trying to envision what that would be. If a business is currently, with respect to just the noise issue, I'm thinking zoning. So you're just talking about noise. That's true.
Okay.
Okay. At this time, I'd like to open it up for anyone for comment. I'd like to limit it to 3 minutes if it's possible. And if the point is being made by one individual, there's no use repeating it. So, thank you.
Thank you. Carla Nycom. We've been here. Most of you know our story. We're greatly concerned. The exemption of animal-related businesses does not seem like that is language that needs to be added to the existing ordinance. And while it's been stated that you have looked at area ordinances, I have pulled out, that's what's printed out here, Santa Claus, Washington, Huntingburg, Ferdinand, Holland, Winslow, French Lick, all of which state ordinances with animal noises that are very similar, if not matching words, to our current ordinance, as well as do not exempt animal-related businesses from that ordinance. It was stated with a question just a moment ago that it would be covered under the general nuisance, but I have already been told when we have had issues that it is a necessary noise. So to say that we would be protected under the general noises, I do not feel is correct, and I don't think that anyone that is with me would feel correct about that, because we have been told it is a necessary noise. It is not a necessary noise. There are other establishments in this town that operate board dogs, and this particular establishment has proven on times and days that they can operate without being a public nuisance. We have endured this problem for almost a year. It will get worse when the weather gets better. A smaller medium kennel will be able to operate in the facility that they plan to leave, and we will be without any protection. We have been in a situation where we have not been able to enjoy the use of our home that we have owned for 26 years. This nuisance has been allowed to trespass on our property, and how this affects the insurance cost, the liability insurance of the city by allowing that to happen, I would like to know. It is a nuisance, and it is trespassing, and it has been allowed to do so. And up until October, when a letter was sent to them telling them that they were in violation, it was allowed to happen. We would like the same protection that is being granted to others, and we would like to know that this is not going to become a continued problem or something that we are going to have to deal with for the next 2 years to try and rectify, if we can ever rectify. This is a great place to live. We have made wonderful strides, and hopefully we don't put the growth of the city in front of people. People are what makes a city. I cannot imagine that any one of you would want to endure being woke up at a time you do not normally get up by listening to 30, 40, 20 dogs barking for a constant period of time. And tomorrow morning, if you pass this, the floodgates open. They can do whatever they want, whenever they want. And there's nothing to stop them from deciding that they want to open the doors during the night and let the dogs out so that they don't have to wait until morning.
Thank you for your comments, Carla. Anyone else from the public?
I'm Brian. I'm Carla's husband. One of the things that's going on in the country is everybody's concerned about their rights. The Second Amendment is under attack. We all know that. I think every resident in this city would like to keep as many rights as possible. This affects everybody. It may not today, it may not tomorrow, but somewhere along the line, one decision after another bad decision ends up making this a point in time where there's going to be another disaster, and you're not going to be able to do anything about it. People are concerned about their rights. They don't want to lose them. This is a democracy. That means everywhere. For you guys too. I mean, you would understand it if you'd have to endure what we've endured for almost a year, if not longer. It's a daily occurrence. It's completely unacceptable. I can't tell you guys enough that you have way too many questions to pass this today. There's way too many questions. You have not contacted the public. There has not been any public notice. It's disappointing. You guys are elected.
Thank you, Brian. Appreciate your comments. Anyone else from the public?
Renee, how does our nuisance ordinance address this then? Like you said, the nuisance part would take care of parts that aren't in here.
The nuisance does, Carla was right, it speaks to unnecessary noises.
Okay.
And I have always relied on the police department and their discretion in making those kinds of determinations. To her example about somebody opening the doors up in the middle of the night and letting the dogs out, I feel like if that were going on, the officers would be called down there because we would receive multiple complaints. And from my perspective, I would take the position that that's unnecessary. There are operating hours during which that should be happening. And that's how I would anticipate seeing that enforced.
Other questions? Drew?
Yeah, my name's Andrew Eckert. I really don't have anything to add or detract from what they said, but I just think it'd be a catastrophe if there were we had no means to remediate or, just get rid of if the noise was that bad, we just have no recourse. And I just don't like it. I just want to be on record as saying that. And I think it would be good to open up the public debate also. So thank you.
Thank you. So in the discussion, several things to contemplate, and I've been in many discussions about this. You talk about rights, they're in representation. These are elected officials. They're representing our public. They hear both sides of it. We have you coming up talking about the negative side of it. We get a lot of positives too about having downtown dog there. So there's both sides of the story. I'm trying to come up with a place where we can work long term. We don't want to create future problems. That's the last thing we want to do. But in essence, it's an industrial property zoned that way. And if downtown dog leaves, a stamping operation could come in, or another noise-making operation, saw sharpening. There's all kinds of noise-making industrial businesses that are going to have the opportunity to move in that could be much more substantial than the dogs barking. And I recognize the dogs barking is an issue, so I recognize that. I think there's been a lot of effort internally from city staff, from council members, from Downtown Dog, from the NICOMs, from everybody to try to come to a resolution on this. And the investigation, a lot of the small towns in our area, I don't want to speak out of line, but for the most part, many of their ordinances are redundant to what we do. They're going to take us as a lead on many of these issues.
Can I comment on something?
In a minute, okay? Let me just kind of give my 2 cents worth, because I want everybody, as they make a decision on this, we can do a number of things. We could table it, or we could pass the ordinance tonight. I mean, those are the options we have. Will we have anything better a month from now? I don't know. I know we've done a lot of work on it, and I think people become sensitive to certain noises, and you become focused on those. I don't know. I'm in a situation where I feel like the ordinance we have written up here is fair going forward, and the fact that Downtown Dog is moving, and yeah, there is a risk of another kennel coming in, a small kennel. How they would manage it might be different than Downtown Dog. I don't know if it'd be better or worse. I can't tell. But the main thing is that, we have to deal with these businesses as they come in. They've gone through the processes, gotten the variance to operate there. But having, special exception, having noise infiltrate your own property and your privacy, it's a big deal. I just don't know where the noise is going to come from next. If it's not Downtown Dog, where's it going to come from? And anywhere in the city, you're going to find noise. So Carla was asked to address me.
First, sorry.
And at this point, I want to limit to where each of you have this time, and that's it, okay? New points.
New points
Okay.
to the other cities. I also have at least a dozen that are similar-sized cities, Auburn, Indiana, various places, and again, similar, if not more restrictive, and do not exclude kennels. The noises, as far as other noises, we certainly live with the construction of the wonderful new cultural center and library. It will go away. We have, over the years, we've been there, again, 26 years, we have listened to plenty of industrial noise and understand that that is a part of it. The sound of a barking dog is not a sound that I want to become immune to. While it can mean excitement, it also can mean very many different things that are not positive. In light of unfortunate incidences, even in the state of Indiana, with children being killed by animals, it is not a sound that I want to become immune to. And it is unbelievable what it can sound like to have that number of dogs. Even if it's medium, that's a lot of dogs. 5 dogs can make the sound of 20 dogs, depending upon the type of dog that they are. And to have to tolerate that because it's a part of the business that they have proven they can manage, and that other businesses similar to them manage, be given a free ticket just doesn't feel right.
When they haven't been, they've been cited, and they are now moving, relocating as a result of all this, so.
I
think there have
apologize.
been steps
What
back.
I meant was if you add that to the language of the ordinance.
Yeah.
I'm not saying previously. I apologize that that was not stated correctly.
Thank you, Carla.
Okay.
Brian?
We're mainly here not just for ourselves, but we're here for every resident in the city, because I don't think a lot of people know what's going on. I don't think they understand the rights that they're losing. That's part of the reason why we're here. We're not just here for ourselves. We don't want anybody else, including you all, to have to go through what we did. This is terrible. We don't live in a city to have to experience this, because there are rules, there are laws. We've been more than considerate with our concerns. We've been patient. You can ask Chief up here. He knows we've been patient, right? We've been very patient. We were trying to get to a solution, and we never asked for them to be put out of business. We never asked for them to be fined. We just wanted it to stop. We don't have anger in this situation. What we have is a problem. We're not angry with anybody.
Yep.
We're concerned about, does my neighbor, does my buddy across town have a problem? Do I have parents that end up having this problem? I mean, it's a terrible thing to have to deal with. And I guess the only other thing that I have is, we talked about the setback, the buffer. The downtown dog maybe has 20 feet, 40 feet, 30 feet.
700 feet from your location.
Correct, but it's not a setback from the property line. There was a figure, talked about 100 feet setback in industrial.
Industrial to residential.
Okay, so you have that distance between,
Industrial is 25 feet. 25 feet from the property line this way, 25 feet from the other direction.
so you have a 25-foot setback from the property line.
Eye to eye. Which where they're at now is eye to eye. Carl and I talked about it today. I don't know what the Riverwalk, that area is zoned down there between Conservation District. So, and I don't know what the difference is, or
Yeah, and I don't,
setback is off the top of my head from industrial to conservation. But
I don't know how far they are either.
But to their closest neighbor, that is a privately owned or publicly owned property, the setback is 25 feet.
Okay.
So Jasper Desk, I assume, is going to be the next property owner across the railroad tracks
Yeah.
in there.
What about Drew?
I don't think Drew's house is within 25 feet of.
Well, I mean, his property line.
100 feet,
What's
because he's
that?
residential.
He would be residential, then he would be 100 foot.
Okay, I don't think that's,
100 foot.
no, it's not even close to 100 foot. It's less than that.
Yep, so, and again, they weren't as big as what they are now when they first started, correct? Admittedly, with you guys, and when I talked to your wife today, for 2 years there was no issue, and the last year it's become an issue,
I would say last year and a half.
as it got
It's
bigger.
been an issue for longer than that.
Yeah. It's,
Okay.
you know, and I want to make this clear, that 5 dogs that are aggressive, that are mature, that are large dogs can make a lot of noise. 10 dogs. It doesn't have to be 40. You know, and I just don't want the city to set this precedence if you somehow disobey the law and you do it enough times, well, we're just going to kind of push that over to the side and not worry about it. Does that set a precedent for other businesses to kind of say, well, if we kind of do this enough that we can get away with it?
You know, I think the city, thank you for your comments, but I think the city will take action, what we consider to be the best action at this point in time. It may not be the perfect action, but like anything we pass, our ordinances do change over time. We learn as we go. If we pass the ordinance this evening, we come back and revisit. You know, we make those changes as we go, as we see better solutions, and that's what we do. I mean, I've been involved.
Early is correct.
No.
You could do that at any time. But why do it now then if you could do it at any time?
Because we feel like now is an appropriate time. It's been on our docket for quite a long time in the discussion. And that's why it was on the agenda tonight. We may choose to table it. Thank you, Brian, for your comments.
I have a couple more questions. I'm trying to understand. Yes, I will be quick. Does this not need to go through the Planning Commission first, that Paul, that you used to be on? Should this?
Still am on, and it has. I mean, we went and we've talked about the ordinance. We started this discussion in September. We went and got definitions of kennel sizes.
Okay.
To get into on there. There was obviously noise considerations taken into that. Some of it on behalf of you guys and what we were hearing from that side. This board, we will have in what we call our Unified Development Ordinance that we adopted in 2016, and we always called that a living, breathing document. So when we see multiple complaints come in, you know, on height variances, sizes of buildings come through, materials on the outside of buildings, noise complaints like this come through, we revisit those at the typically end of summer, coming into fall every year. Then we have discussion usually in October, November, and then we move to adopt in December and send it back to this board, to the city council, for their approval and to come across. So again, it's nothing that we're going to say it in here tonight, we're going to hammer it in stone, and it can never change on there. That's a living, breathing document on the Unified Development Ordinance, and that's where a lot of this stems from or started coming in from. Hey, we need to address this and see what we can do to help mitigate some complaints.
I just think that the number of dogs and relating to the amount of noise does not really depict what the amount of noise there is.
Thank you, Brian.
But at some point, we had to identify what was small, medium, or large as a kennel also.
One more thing, would you?
Drew Eckert again. Yeah, I've been living at this property on and off for 60 years. And before this kennel, there was a grooming place, and obviously the veneer mills and everything else. And, you know, I guess when my parents built there, they knew what they were getting into. And so you kind of got used to that and this and that. And the grooming place never presented a problem either. But this had been going on for several years before this. And, I mean, it was a different kind of noise. It was kind of a different kind of problem. And it would just be good to have some kind of recourse to be able to do something about it. I mean, the EPA has standards for pollution, you know, and I don't know if they have anything for noise pollution, but...
There is. OSHA does.
Pardon me?
OSHA does.
OSHA does, but, I mean, I just don't think you can pollute indiscriminately, and that's what I feel is going on right now. And I know they're moving and this and that, and it has gotten better for me. I'm not speaking for them, but I just don't want it to be like it was, before August or September or whenever it was, when it abated. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. It's time to determine what our action will be. I have a motion from Dave and a second by John to pass and adopt ordinance number 2020-6. And we can vote on it, or we can table it.
Well, there are several options.
What other options might we have?
I did want to say before I go there, under the noise, as I was reading it today and after speaking, I told the mayor, I think I was on the telephone about 3 hours today talking about this. If you look at the language that's proposed tonight, it says that certain establishments are exempt if they are otherwise in compliance with the Jasper Municipal Code, Chapter 4 districts, including but not limited to. And I feel like it would be better, it would reflect the meaning better if we included the Uniform Development Ordinance. So I'm not changing the language, I just want to better define what we are talking about when we say otherwise in compliance with. So I would like to include, I would like it to say otherwise in compliance with the zoning provisions included in the Jasper Municipal Code Unified Development Ordinance. Specifically that language, rather than, I just feel like that would make it clearer.
And those zoning provisions are the ones that you outlined earlier as far as identifying ag, rural residential, R1, R2, whatever, special exception, no large, and then I2 allowing small, medium, and large with special exception also. Mhm.
So you want to add this to?
I would amend
Number-
it
to
and
number
ask you
3.
that if you are going to vote on the adoption of it tonight, to vote on adopting it as amended. With the language that I just stated.
Renee, I guess I would like to have that in writing, the copy of what we would be approving as amended. Otherwise, I've got to write it in myself. And I'm liable to make a mistake.
No, I would be happy to send that out.
So if that is the case.
Right. And I'd like to point out what I like about this is the change where it says, under enforcement, where it says, not only can you issue the citation to the owner, but to the person who's in control of the animal, if not the owner, right? I like that. On the flip side of that coin, we're letting the person in control of the animals off the hook if they are a kennel. So the council, last year, this council I was not yet on, it was brought to the council that there were some 30 residents in violation of an ordinance, the pool ordinance. And that was debated, and I think the council finally decided upon digging in and sticking to that same ordinance, that yes, we're going to require fences. So perhaps that's what will happen here, I don't know, but I'm going to recommend, Mayor, if we can table this, that's what I'm going to recommend, especially in light of the suggested revision from Renee.
So if we table it and she puts that in, then you're going to be all right with it then?
Undecided at this point. I'm not in favor of it as it is. That is subject to change.
Well, my opinion, again, is that I start thinking of all the families in Jasper that have dogs, and all the dogs I hear when I go through the neighborhoods and stuff like that, and I'm going, well, why don't I call the police every day and let them come out and straighten this out? But, you're always going to have noises, you're always going to have dogs, that's just the way it is, that people like dogs. I remember when I was walking campaigning, it just amazed the heck out of me. I knock on the door and it sounded like you're going to be attacked by a pit bull or something like that. You know? So there are a lot of dogs out there. The other thing in all this is that I feel like, they've done everything that they could. They have a lot of people that if we tell them to come in here and sit here and, say, hey, this is the best place in the world. We got a kennel that we can bring our dog to and take off for a couple of days or a week or whatever. They would say, oh, this is great. Let's do this, so.
And they did, Dave. I mean, the Board of Zoning Appeals meeting the other night, it was a full house in here, both for and against. We had a very good dialogue in here that night. I think everybody kept calm heads and presented the best arguments on their side for both causes.
And that's what I'm getting at is, there's two sides to every story. So, I don't see tabling myself. I would prefer to have it approved with an amendment that Renee's talking about and go like that.
Why don't you read the proposed, just that paragraph 3?
Sure.
Please. And that's where the changes.
Under the noises.
So, Chapter 6.04.020 regulations, subsection 3 noises. It shall be unlawful for any person to own, keep, or harbor any animal which by its barking, howling, baying, squealing, crowing, crying, bleating, screeching, or making any other noise which by its volume or frequency unreasonably disturbs or interferes with the peace and quiet of any person or of the neighborhood. Exceptions not subject to enforcement of this subsection are commercial animal facilities, including, but not limited to, commercial pet facilities, animal welfare facilities, veterinary hospitals, or grooming parlors, otherwise in compliance with the zoning provisions included in Jasper Municipal Code Uniform Development Ordinance, Chapter 4, Districts. And those who can substitute that animal, substantiate that such animal noise was caused by an injury or illness of the animal or by willful trespass, torment, or abuse of the animal on its property by others.
So really, the only difference is adding the
reference
and the
Citing the definitions and the enforcement, enforceable language.
Okay.
And then the authority that the police would have would be under the general nuisance ordinance and the noise section of that, as far as.
No, this is language in the animal ordinance, 6.04.050. Enforcement is contained within the animal ordinance. We just added code enforcement officer.
But the only difference there is those businesses listed above are exempt. So the police would not be issuing those to an exempt facility. So where they could issue something would be through the general nuisance ordinance.
For those
commercial exempted properties.
Out of curiosity, question for the chief and Mr. Stallman here that happen to be officers. Do you guys carry decibel meters in each of the cars? Does anybody have those on the police
Dosimeters, no.
To check decibels, nothing? No. I didn't know what the state code was versus ours.
Well, and the problem, Kevin knows this, but the problem with the dosimeter is over a period of time, it gets averaged out. You'll have peaks and you'll have the valleys, and so the average may be well in compliance, but it's still aggravating. That's the problem with using a dosimeter and those levels. So I do have a motion from Chad to table. I'd like to see if there's support to table before we vote on the ordinance. So I have a motion from Chad to table. Is there a second? Hearing,
Before we do it, though, in there, quick question for you guys. Public input, I know going into a lot of the meetings that we do, I assume, Dave, somebody had contacted you prior, and you took those concerns there and addressed that as well. Okay.
hearing no support to table?
Question, I guess, for the NICAMs, you had said that this was not publicly known, but yet there was a public hearing held at the BZA meeting, and you said the room was full. So obviously, this is publicly known that this issue is being discussed.
I don't know how anyone would know that the animal noises was being discussed.
The noises, again, in my opinion there, is we were talking about this council was talking about this last year already, as was planning going back into the fall. I don't know that we talked about making a ton of changes to the noise ordinance as it pertains as what we're doing here on the planning side, planning or zoning side in there. That kind of came from the council side, but at least it was being discussed in the public so that there, and again, in you guys' case for sure, that we knew that there was a problem that was brought up in front of the city officials.
And I apologize, correct me if I'm wrong, but many of you did not know of our situation in December when this was tabled, when it was proposed the first time.
I didn't know about it.
I didn't know about it. I heard of it
You were the only
after a
one.
while.
Right?
Pardon me?
You were unaware of it
Yes.
until that point.
Yes.
Right.
So, and this particular part of it, the animal noises, did not come to planning, is what we discussed today.
That's correct.
Paul?
Correct.
And Renee, when you and I spoke last week, you agreed with me that the animal noises had not come in front of any council until December.
I think that's true.
Okay. So I do not believe that we have been discussing this for a long time, and I do not know how the public would know that animal noises was part of a city council meeting and that the ordinance was going to change. I'm not sure how they would know.
Thank you. So we've had that input, concern about whether or not the public would have an opportunity to voice their concerns on it. Again, I have a motion from Chad to table. I did not have support to table, but given this feedback,
So I guess my comment or question again would be, again, wanted to be as transparent as we can. If we table this for 30 days, gather public input via email, via phone, text, whatever. I don't know if there's any other public forum that we were able to do that in. They could come and talk about it. I'm sure the Herald or the reporting agencies would question on that too. If we table it now, 30 days from now, is there anything that we're going to see that's really going to change in our language? I mean, until
I don't know whether, maybe Alan could answer this. I don't know what was in the Herald following the December meeting. It came up at the December. It came up at the December meeting. I mean, and was tabled. So I would have assumed that the public that was interested in having input on the animal noise issue it would be no different now with an article in the paper if there was one in December.
thus the attendance at the last BZA.
But that was really for a zoning.
And that was for a special exception for a large kennel and not necessarily noises, although noise was a very large part of that discussion as well.
I did not receive any input from the community following the December council meeting
And
where the noise ordinance came up.
I received input from 2 constituents, and those are both in the last 48 hours before this meeting.
And I got a couple of them, and a couple of them up on your street up there, Riverside Drive, right? And I've had some people out in the Holy Family area that I've talked to about dogs, and they have dogs, and some that didn't. And there's really no, they didn't have any problem with anything, having the kennels and that type of stuff, so.
Yeah.
To Chad Leakin's point, maybe what Paul said also, as far as tabling this, kind of like what we did with the pool ordinance, the pool cover ordinances, we were able to contact people in the community and get their opinion during that time, and I think we did table that ordinance for 1 or 2 months even, and were able to generate some different ideas and opinions from the public about it. So that would be something in favor of tabling it, just to gather more information.
So with regard to Chad's motion, I think I heard
I'll make a second to table it.
We don't have it's not necessary to rush into this either. So if a missing piece is feedback from the community, then I believe we should make that announcement. Hopefully Alan will write something about it in the paper, and we'll get additional feedback. I don't see a problem with that, because if that's what the next step is, then maybe that's what we should take.
Sure.
I think it allows for representation, again, as council members. I don't know where we'll end up with it, but by tabling it, it does allow that dialogue to take place for the next month.
Just a quick note on this too, us tabling the noise ordinance tonight, there's nothing for Downtown Dog and the potential move to Kathy Lane that they're doing at this point, correct?
What do you mean?
They got their special exception grant, they can move forward.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Okay.
Just wanna
I
make
have
sure
a,
that's-
I have a motion from Chad to table and a second from Nancy. Any further discussion on that? If not, all in favor of tabling, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, votes 6-1. So we will table it to the next meeting. Okay, the next thing on the agenda is a resolution, and this is eligible for one reading only. And so I would ask that the resolution referring to Phase 2 of Park Place Estates of Kirstein's development, if there would be a motion to consider for one reading only.
I'll make that motion for a one reading only, please.
I have a motion from Paul.
I'll second.
I have a second from Kevin. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Can I ask for a motion to have the resolution read in full or by title only?
Make a motion to read by title only, please.
I have a motion from Paul for title only.
I'll second.
A second from Phil. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, would the city attorney please read Resolution 2020-1 by title only?
Resolution number 2020-1, a resolution of the Common Council of the City of Jasper, Indiana, designating a portion of the City of Jasper, Indiana as an economic revitalization area. Park Place Estates 1 LLC.
Okay, do you want to go through a little bit of the description, because this is in front of the Economic Development this morning.
Right. I think Ruger will have a presentation for you. I'll only say that with respect to this project, the area in itself, the entire area, has already been identified, designated by the council as an economic revitalization area when Phase 1 was initiated. So what this does is really give you the opportunity to approve or change, if you desire, the scoring that was given to Phase 2 by the Economic Development Commission this morning. So I just wanted to make that clear. We're not designating it again as a redevelopment area or an economic redevelopment area. We're really looking at the scoring.
Were they recommending something different, or?
No, this is,
They were pretty consistent with with Phase 1. It's just that I just wanted to point out that it's a little bit different procedure since we've already identified it and designated it as an economic revitalization area.
Or sheets attached.
Ruger, would you like to come up?
Thanks, Ruben.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ruben. Thanks, sir. Good.
Take a second to get mine plugged in here.
Mayor, while he's calling that up, you missed a conflict of interest for Paul Lori.
I did.
I recuse myself from this.
So why don't we take an action on a conflict of interest statement regarding Paul Lori? And this is submitted from the City of Jasper with regard to him as a contractor or vendor, Hof Equipment Incorporated. Paul has signed everything here as far as the disclosure statement seems to be in order. So I would entertain a motion to approve receipt of the conflict of interest. Is that right?
I'll make that
That's what we
motion
want?
to
All right, I
approve.
have a motion to approve the conflict of interest statement.
I will second.
I have a second from Chad. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, Paul, thank you for submitting.
Thank you, sorry.
If you can't bring that up,
Have all my ducks in a row.
to,
January.
he needs the password.
Looking at the wrong.
She knows what the City of Jasper password is, I would think.
Last time, so we had the same problems.
What should be 1, 2, 3, 4?
She's not yelling it out.
Password.
No, you gave
Chief, are you coming up to fix it? I know you're technology savvy, so that's,
If it doesn't, that I can.
This is just, I never use this laptop, so I don't know what.
you just want to speak to it since we have
Yes,
the...
everything that's on the PowerPoint is on the printout that's in front of you. The only thing that's going to be a little difficult to see would be the interior photos of Phase 1 that I wanted to show everybody, because they're a little dark on my printer for some reason. Showed up a little brighter on the PowerPoint. I'd be happy to share photos via email or drop some off to the office if anybody wants to see some later. So
I think we got them here, image 15, 16, 17, and 18. Look nice.
yes,
Us were out at your open house, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
quite a few people through during the open house to see. And on our website, premierpropmanagement.com, if you go to our rental properties tab, click on Park Place, you can do a 3D walkthrough on there too and see exactly what the units look like that way too. So get started. For some of you, might seem a little redundant from Phase 1 presentation that I did. My goal today is to show you which units will be introduced in Phase 2 and highlight Phase 1 and everything that we endured during that project. So starting off on slide number 2, project overview. Park Place Estates totally will be 148 units. Phase 1 was 30 units plus the community room. Phase 2, we're introducing 44 more 2-bedroom units, all market rate apartments, and we're going to continue to use our innovative eco-friendly development style that we did on Phase 1. On slide number 3, if anybody's not familiar with the site, it's directly behind Nancy Bear. You can see it on the photo here is a little smaller, but that puts it into perspective on where it is in town. Slide number 4, it shows the project layout. We're introducing 44 units is going to be in 6 buildings. Can't really explain them, which ones they are in here, but I'd be happy to show if anybody has questions which one. I'll point them out in this paper for you after I'm done giving the presentation. So Phase 2, what we're looking at is 44 units, 6 buildings, all 2 bedrooms, and total investment would be $3.7 million. That is about roughly $1 million more than Phase 1, and that's because of the increase of unit count and added infrastructure to carry the units. Again, we support local. We're going to continue to use our local suppliers and contractors, as we always do at every development that we do here in Du Bois County. To reiterate the materials that were used on Phase 1, we really tried to make these as energy efficient as possible for the residents. Being all appliances are Energy Star rated, LED lighting was installed throughout the units. Water efficient toilets and hydroponic heat system is one that I wanted to highlight the most. I'm not sure if everybody's familiar with the tankless hot water heaters, but we went with a new system where we installed tankless hot water heaters throughout the buildings, and it circulates hot water for everybody, being more efficient than the typical hot water heater and furnace setup, to where this way it's a constantly circulating hot water, to where the resident will never be without hot water. And it keeps the heating bills a little bit, it keeps the heating bills down significantly. And a common question was, from residents moving in, there was a concern that they would not be able to control their heat individually per unit. Each unit is, in fact, controlled individually. So if your neighbor wants theirs at 65 and you want yours at 85, you can do so. Going forward to slide number 8. The extension of 32nd Street went in very nicely. Right now, we haven't reseeded the dirt, but once it gets its final grading, that grass will all be seeded back and some trees planted back in the buffer where it was all torn down to get the fill in for the road. Utilities remain constant from phase 1 that was proposed, private water and sewer, and public gas and electric. We still will have 2 retention ponds and on-site private dumpsters for the residents. So going into slide number 11.
Private water and sewer, what do you mean by that?
So private water and sewer is, we installed, and we have a bulk meter for water, to where we incur the cost of all the water and sewer. Pardon?
It's included in their fees.
Okay, but you're still using the city services for that. You're just covering it on your end.
Yes. Slide number 11, phase 1 highlights. Just want to kind of touch base on what we were able to do in phase 1. All the units are 100% occupied. The final building is being completed, scheduled to move in March 15th. They've been completely full for a few weeks now, even before the second building was finished. So we were all extremely excited about that. So far, so good, great turnout. And the price range we were able to keep them at, I'm even more excited about. The 1-bedrooms starting at $575, and the 2-bedroom townhomes at $725. And to put the size in perspectives, the 1-bedrooms are about 600 square feet, and the 2-bedrooms are 975 square foot townhomes. So we believe that this is a great rate for our residents here in Jasper and very affordable for our workforce. With the addition to the units, we're also creating community fitness center, a basketball court, a shelter house, and that will all come late spring whenever the weather allows us to move more dirt without getting stuck in the mud. It's very muddy right now. And those will all be included in the residents' rent. It won't be an extra charge to use the facilities on site. Slide number 12, phase 1, there's a rendering. If you flip to the next page, slide number 14 is the actual photo of the site that I took with my drone. You can see the 3 buildings in the community room, and then looking past that, the open ground, and that's where the expansion will continue. Slide number 15, 16, 17, and 18 are all interior photos. The countertops are solid surface. We did some upgraded sinks and vinyl flooring on the main floor and carpet upstairs. But other than that, you can kind of see in the photos the quality of finishes that we were able to use and what's being provided for our residents there at Park Place.
Because we went into the 2-bedroom unit. When it's a 1-bedroom unit, is that all on one floor?
The 1-bedroom's 1 floor, yes.
Kind of in relationship to these pictures, where is the bedroom for the 1-bedroom?
So in these photos here, these were all of the 2-bedroom townhome that I had staged for the open house and was able to take some good photos of. The 1-bedroom's down below.
So that's the lower level when you were out there.
From behind, yeah. Oh, that's fine.
And the 2 bedrooms, both bedrooms and full bathroom are upstairs.
Thank you.
With that, throughout the whole process of the lease up, we only lost 2 of our current residents that stepped up into Park Place Estates. So for us, that was exciting, that we didn't lose a lot of our own residents. So that showed us that it was a true market rate absorption to these units here. And as I reiterated to the Economic Development Board this morning, we're very excited about this project, looking forward to continue to build a product like this at that price for our residents in Jasper, for the remainder of Park Place Estates and other projects looking forward. So I appreciate your time this evening. Thank you.
And all 30 are rented?
Yes.
Of the existing, so.
Yes, yep. The final building will move in my goal is to have them in by March 15th. So,
Of the existing, is it building R, Q, and P on this map?
yes, the ones that you have highlighted there are the ones that will be built in Phase 2, the ones in blue. Does everybody have that diagram?
Everyone was sent this. I don't know. I printed it off. So I don't know.
The application, yeah.
Had this for weeks, really.
That would be Phase 2.
It's great. From the plan side, this is wonderful to watch something that we've been working on for 5 years, 6 years, come to fruition. Yeah, no, it's great.
Well, this complements what we heard in our housing study and as well as our comprehensive plan. It's the right direction. Good thing is we've got 30 new residents living in the community that some of them are from within our community that just decided to live on their own, but others moving in here from other locations. So that's what we're after. We want to provide that housing so that we can recruit people to fill the jobs here.
I'd be curious, Rutger, can you tell if the people are coming from out of town or, like you said, moving around?
Sure. From most of the people I've spoken with are from Du Bois County. We had a few move in from out of town that are working at Master Bren, but primarily they were all from within Du Bois County, moving from various different places into this one, into a newer unit. So also wanted to reiterate, I didn't cover in this speech too, thanking everybody that for the abatement in Phase 1 and continued support because of the abatement, we're able to keep these rents at the rate that we're at now. And I think it's a great thing for our community. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ruger. Could I have a motion to pass and adopt resolution number 2020-1?
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion from Kevin.
Second that motion.
I have a second from Nancy. Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Congratulations. Thank you. With that, this last thing on the agenda. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
I have a motion from Paul to adjourn.
I'll second and go Hoosiers.
I wanted to stay, so I wasn't going to second it.
I have a second from Phil. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, meeting adjourned.